the 5 biggest mistakes that internationals make regarding real estate in Venezuela. Today we discuss.
Welcome to Venezuela Insider, the only place in Venezuela for expats, digital nomads, entrepreneurs, investors, travelers, and related internationals. For more information, venezuelainsider.com.
So today we are going to discuss the biggest mistakes that internationals make when they are doing the analysis regarding the real estate market here in Venezuela. I'm seeing, of course, I have experience on this particular regard, and I see they, of course, you commit a lot of mistakes when you are not keen on a particular market, a particular issue, a particular endeavor. And of course, real estate is just one of those things. And I see, of course, you commit a bunch of mistakes on that regard when you don't have the know-how, the experience, and that kind of thing. But however, there are 5 mistakes that I see that most internationals commit frequently regarding real estate in Venezuela, and that's what we are discussing today. So let's start. The first mistake is that the Venezuelan real estate market is not homogeneous, is heterogeneous. So let me explain. What most internationals do abroad is that they treat the Venezuelan real estate market as a whole instead of dividing each particular regional market. If you know something about real estate, you know location, location, location. And of course, in Venezuela is no different. Each market has different traits and different particular issues and nuances, and each market is completely different. So it's not the same thing going, of course, with Caracas, the capital, that just Caracas by itself is a huge heterogeneous market compared to, let's say, a mid-sized city on the center west of the country, let alone a place like Margarita Island. Each market should be treated differently from one another. And those markets, of course, every market has some complexities. And when you are analyzing Venezuela as a whole and not doing your due diligence on each particular market, you are going to make a big mistake, most likely. The second biggest mistake is that thinking that Venezuela is a poor country. Venezuela is not a poor country. It's an impoverished country, an impoverished economy, actually. And many people abroad, especially on the West, treat Venezuela as if Venezuela is some sort of a sub-Saharan nation and, like Africa, like some country in Africa, or maybe an undeveloped country in Southeast Asia, or a country like Afghanistan. And also, this is another thing, they treat it like is these very conflicted countries like Afghanistan, Syria, place like that, and that's not the case. And of course, when you come and you start doing your analysis about Venezuela with that particular train of thought, what you're going to do is, of course, you're going to commit a bunch of mistakes analyzing, seeing the opportunities that, of course, they are, and do a terrible assessment on each property because you already have a misassessment on the country as a whole. So on this particular case is, of course, you're going to have terrible results. For instance, Venezuela has an economy right now around a little bit over $100 billion of GDP. And at some moment, it was flirting with being a 400 billion economy on GDP numbers, of course. But the thing is that doesn't mean that's the whole value of right now of the country. And actually, the GDP was under 50 billion just a few years ago. And we already discussed this, the 80% GDP collapse. And of course, a lot of bad things regarding economics happening in the country. However, if you treat Venezuela as an impoverished nation, most likely you are going to fail because you starting your particular due diligence with a miscalculation and a misassessment. The number 3 is using a cookie cutter strategy. This goes mostly for people on the United States that what they do when they are doing an analysis regarding real estate, the first thing that they do is go to this particular real estate listings like Zillow that you have in the United States. Basically, you have the price and the valuation of a property on real time. This is not going to happen in Venezuela. The real estate listings here are lackluster, to say the least. So if you start your particular due diligence on the Venezuelan market, relying on a particular website listing or just talking to one realtor and just one realtor, you are going to have a terrible assessment of the situation. Other thing is that I see a lot these big influencers in social media, people like Grant Cardone, David Ramsey, Graham Stephan, people like that. And everything that they say, that of course I respect those particular gentlemen and they are very successful on their field in the United States. That's the most important thing. And we are not here in the United States. So remember, Toro, we are not in Kansas anymore. So if you have these particular strategies and mindset that these particular guys use on their particular platforms and they became very successful using such strategies, cookie cutter strategies, in Venezuela, they just won't work. Number 4 is being a bottom feeder. And what happens is that the bottom feeders are the most likely the ones that are gonna lose their money on their investment here in Venezuela. Now, the funny thing about Venezuela in regarding the real estate market is that we are close to the bottom. However, now that particular investment on real estate, if you are a bottom feeder, most likely will be lackluster. Most likely you won't lose your money. However, if you want, let's say, you have buyer's remorse and you want to sell it yet again, most likely you bought an, let's say, illiquid property, as I like to call it, because for those particular properties, the market is very illiquid. So, and that comes from the first point that they treat Venezuela as a whole, as a uniform market, and that's not the case. The market is very heterogeneous here in the country. Some locations are very special, are very profitable on the long run. And meanwhile, some properties are in some markets, they are terrible investments. They are good speculations at best, but they are terrible investments. And the other thing is they just analyze the Venezuelan market as a whole, start seeing the prices, and they don't know what is cheap and what is expensive. For instance, there are properties here that cost, let's say, $20,000, and most of the bottom feeders look for those properties, the 20K properties here in the country. Most likely, those properties are, first, that they could be expensive because they are on a terrible market, on a terrible location, and so on. Meanwhile, you can have properties that are $100,000, $200,000, and those can be actually cheap because those are different markets. And the other thing is that if you are looking to $20,000 properties, most likely, and you live on the West, say in the United States or Western Europe, whatever may be the case, and you see a property that costs $20,000, that price is either very outdated from 2018, 2020, something like that. That could be also a property that doesn't worth $20,000, or just flat out you miss on that opportunity, or just an outdated post. So try to please analyze value rather than nominal prices. Other thing regarding the bottom feeders is that they use, yet again, going to the third point, the cookie cutter strategies, is that they think a property is more valuable or less valuable because it's closer to the beach, a beachfront property, or close to the beachfront on a particular market. And that is a terrible way to analyze a real estate market here in Venezuela. First, because we have a big shoreline, so we have a bunch of beaches. So being close to the beach is not as scarce as you might think. And the other thing is that the location is important, of course, and the market, but the most important thing is the market rather than just a geographic location. And you can buy a property very, very, very valuable way far from the beach. Meanwhile, you have a bunch of beachfront properties that actually are terrible investments. And the fifth thing is regarding the credit junkies. Something that you see a lot on Western nations, more developed nations, especially on the United States, is that I'm going to go straight away with the United States because this affects Americans the most, is that many people on the United States are credit junkies. Everything is done using other people's money, so the bank's money or something like that, or a lender's money. And in Venezuela, that's a terrible proposition. Here in Venezuela, the credit market is pretty much non-existent. So, and the few times that you see credit is on terrible conditions, and most likely as an international, you won't have access to such credit, just on a few particular cases. And what happens is the interest rate is going to be way high on USDs, by the way. Everything is done on USDs here. Forget about doing exchange rates in Venezuelan bolivars, things like that. Please, forget about it. Now, the other thing is that when you get this particular financing, it's going to be on very short-term conditions, like just 1 year, 2 years, and most likely, in most cases, not all, you are not going to get the property until you end up paying the whole amount, the whole, outstanding amount for that particular property. So if you think that you can do this yet again, cookie cutter strategies like just build a little bit of equity, and then with the cash flow and the rent, build equity on the property and that kind of thing, those strategies don't work in Venezuela. Now, regarding credit, the good thing about Venezuela is that the Venezuelan market is very, very liquid for a market that pretty much doesn't have a mortgage market. Funny thing how it works. Venezuelans have private Venezuelans, companies and financial successful people here. They have, according to a couple of estimations, from $200 million to 350 billion US dollars on private savings abroad. That will be 3-4 times the Venezuelan GDP. So when a Venezuelan, of course, a rich, successful Venezuelan, sees a good property, they are going to buy it very quickly. That happens a lot on the good market. So that's why you have to be careful. One of the reasons why you have to be careful on which market you're investing in the particular location. But the good thing about if you buy a good property on a good price, if you want to cash flow it or you want to resell it for a profit, something like that, so you're going to be placed on a good position. And the final thought is that if you're thinking that in Venezuela you are going to get rich quickly, especially on real estate, you are solely mistaken. The Venezuelan market is not, trading crypto, is not a meme stock, is not an NFT, is not some of these far-fetched strategies that you see online with a bunch of scams and that kind of thing. So the Venezuelan market is for the long run. You are not going to get rich in Venezuela, especially if you are not financially successful abroad. You are not going to come here and become successful here. Something that I always have to give the disclaimer, because I see a bunch of, let's say, unsophisticated entrepreneurs, novice, something like that, that they think that they could just become a millionaire here when they are not millionaire themselves in a country like the United States. That actually is probably the easiest country to become a millionaire. However, the cool thing about Venezuela is that you can pull off a bunch of projects and cool things that most likely you won't be able to do on your home country.
Thank you for watching Venezuela Insider. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on social media. If you want to work with us, VenezuelaInsider.com. Thanks again and have a nice day.